Hey guys, what's going on here? Welcome back to another video. A couple of things out of the way first. Yes, I am back. Yes, I shaved. I have a new person I am promoting down in the top pinned comment. I'm going to be including a couple of other things there. First, I want to talk about how I'm going to be approaching these kinds of videos. I am going to be talking about what happened in the past 2 weeks. First half, I'm going to be talking about what happened in the week prior to the last week. And then in the second half of this video, I'm going to be talking about week 2, aka last week. And if there's ever a game that I'm talking about with the week prior to last, and there's like a week 2 update, I'll include that with it. First story comes from the Assassin's Creed series. There has been a leak over on 4chan that mysteriously deleted, so I unfortunately couldn't get a screenshot, but I did get this copy and paste version from Reddit, so let's get into that. Wrath of the Druids coming in March follow Halfdan's return to Ireland and his death by Irish Druids before Ivor allies with the King of Dublin. Siege of Paris coming in early June before E3 or similar events. Ivor aids Rollo in the siege and makes allies with French nobles like Odo to depose Charles the Fat. The DLC is much longer and has story elements with Basim that leads into the next game to be revealed at E3. Assassin's Creed Champion, which is the codename, to be announced during E3 or similar presentations, being a classical European fantasy take on the series set in medieval France and Germany, releasing 2022. This next story comes from Attack on Titan, so I kind of want to break into other things like, say, anime news, movie news like Friday the 13th, and then TV show news like, say, SpongeBob or The Walking Dead. Season 4 for this is rumored to be canceled. Why it's rumored to be canceled is because the last season, fans got really mad and started attacking the creators over on Twitter because it wasn't what they wanted. A Twitter user named Best by Milk said this. They said, "How can a fandom be this rude and embarrassing?" And guys, if you look at what he's sharing, the harassment is real here. Like, this is insane. An animator from one of the episodes came forward and said this. They said, "Hi, I participated in Attack on Titan episode 66 as an animator. Thank you for watching. I know most people love the final season so far, but I also want to let those who weren't satisfied know that Mappa worked really hard day and night until it was released on TV. We've done our best to represent the original. I hope everyone can be more compassionate and encouraging. Hopefully you can stay with us for the finale of Attack on Titan." You're probably wondering, what did Mappa say? Did they officially do a response to this? Yes and no. It's not what you expected. This was translated from a fan Twitter page named SpyTrue. They said, "You are free to have your own opinion on the show. However, constantly bothering and harassing staff is unacceptable. Having the courtesy to at least respect the insane effort being put into the show would be appreciated. Let's be mature." This next story comes from Bakugan. This series is now getting Funko Pop figures, and I will leave a link to that in the description down below. This next story comes from the Battlefield series. Out of nowhere, the Battlelog Twitter account all of a sudden went active after almost a decade of inactivity. A YouTuber with over 52,000 subscribers named Danny on PC tweeted out this. They said, "Interesting, the Battlelog account is suddenly active again. Also has Battlefield 5 as banner. I like it, but I'm confused." This next story comes from Bloodborne. This game is getting a demake, and for those who don't know what a demake is, it's pretty much where you take a game and its platform and you go back in time with the graphics on the original platform. So for example, we're talking about Bloodborne. It was for the PS4, so they're going back in time with the graphics and putting it in the style of the original PlayStation. One of the people working on it, named Lilymeister, shared an update on this. They said, "First gen 3D games were super duper excited about being in 3D, so I made the cutscene a little more flashy." And speaking of remakes and demakes, Burnout 3 Takedown is getting a fan remake by a YouTuber with over 200,000 subscribers named LucasRPDJ. This next story comes from Crypt of the NecroDancer. This is now getting some merch, and the official Twitter tweeted out this. It said, "We can't guarantee that staying warm will help you stay on beat, but it probably won't hurt. You can now equip your own Crypt of the NecroDancer scarf and Cadence plush from our friends at Fangamer." This next story comes from Dark Souls 3. A Twitch streamer with over 12,000 followers named BerryCrepe beat this game with the controller that you get with Ring Fit Adventure. This is insane. This next story comes from Deltarune. Toby Fox has now given us an update on Chapter 2 over on Twitter, and he said this. He said, "By the way, the Chapter 2's development is going well. Not sure what else to say, but I feel positive about it." This next story comes from Final Fantasy VII Remake. So an Instagram cosplayer with over 300,000 followers named Ikuro, I don't know how to say that, they posted this cosplaying as Tifa. This looks amazing. Not only that, but we have some news regarding Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. A user over on Reset Era named Navtra said this. They said, "Square announcements are piling up. We're getting Final Fantasy XVI's next expansions reveal next month, and Final Fantasy VII Remake PS5, and Life is Strange 3 should be soon after." When asked about when this would happen, Navtra responded with this. "The thing is, talking when is tricky due to the current circumstances. Games that were targeting this quarter for release as late as last summer didn't even get trailers since. so I can never be too sure about when something is announced/released. With that said, I believe we're getting these announcements sometime in February. I just can't be 100% sure about it. And when someone asked Noptra about the trademarks that were filed earlier this year, and for context, Gamatsu tweeted out this. They said, Square Enix trademarks Ever Crisis, The First Soldier, and Shinra logo in Japan. And Noptra responded with, I'm not sure about those, to be honest. Ever Crisis sounds like it may be an umbrella name for the remake project going forward, but that's just a guess. And this next story comes from the GTA series. So last time I talked about this, I was talking about San Andreas and how it was rumored to get a potential remake, and now rumors have kind of shifted from that to a Trilogy remaster. Over on the GTA forums, I'll show a series of pictures. Just two people having a conversation back and forth. Everything is code-named, and just keep in mind of this last post, though. The last post says, yeah, I should get a trailer soon. Truck should have plenty of power with this engine. No problem towing/hauling. And this kind of lines up with what happened over on Twitter. So for context, a user named UniGTANet said this. They said fan-made shark cards. And if you look at the cards, it says 2001, 2002, and 2004. Ignore 2013. I don't know why that's there. But anyway, what do those years mean? 2001 is the release of GTA 3. 2002 is GTA Vice City. And 2004 is San Andreas. So yeah, it's looking pretty good for a GTA Trilogy remaster. This next story comes from The Last of Us Part 2. A PS5 patch could potentially be in the works here. Noptra said this over on Reset Era. They said, I know a patch was in the works at some point, but I'm not sure if it's still happening or when. I'd be surprised if it doesn't get a patch, though. And this next story comes from The Legend of Heroes Hajimari no Kiseki. This was originally announced as a Japan-only game, but now we have our first hint at a potential localization. So on the official NIS America site, it has a series of screenshots. Now, usually when you go to this site, it would just show a video playing in the background. And a lot of people have been taking this as a potential hint for a potential localization. This next story comes from Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Based off of this game alone, the developers have made over $58,000 for the Rainforest Trust charity. I Am 8-Bit tweeted out this. They said, last year, you helped save the rainforest during our Ori charity drive. We raised $50,000 for Rainforest Trust. That's enough to protect 29 acres of rainforest habitat, a space roughly the size of Manhattan. We are humbled by the Ori community. Thank you. This next story comes from Overwatch 2. We potentially have another update on the release date, but it might not be releasing as soon as you think. A credible Twitter user named Neri tweeted out this, and they said, Overwatch 2 will probably not release this summer. No matter how early it is released, it will be released at the end of the year 2021. Recently, Overwatch Genji Korean voice actor revealed that he has not started recording Overwatch 2 Genji. Now, Neri did not leave their source on the Twitter post, so I had to go digging a little bit more, and I found this comment on Reddit, and this is what it said. The person said, it comes from a recent interview which is mostly about Cyberpunk 2077, since he's also the voice of Male V, but he also briefly talks about Overwatch. If you look, it says, you're still working on Overwatch, right? Yeah, I'm still working on Overwatch, but I haven't heard anything about Overwatch 2. Right, isn't it supposed to be announced next month? What's going on, Blizzard? I'm not fired, am I? You didn't record it yet? Nothing related to Overwatch 2. This next story comes from Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. This is pretty funny. A YouTuber with over 5,000 subscribers named Micah put a Reddit argument into the style of Ace Attorney. And this next story comes from the Pokemon series. So it looks like Pokemon cards are coming back to McDonald's. This was actually leaked early over on Twitter. And PokeJungle tweeted out this. They said, it appears that at the McDonald's Pokemon Happy Meal promotion has leaked and is expected to start in the US next month. This next story comes from Puyo Puyo Tetris 2. There has been this problem. Item cards are not triggering their special effects, which is very weird, but the official Puyo Puyo Twitter responded and addressed this issue, and they said this. We have identified an issue in the January 14th update for Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 version 1.1.0, where item cards aren't activating their special effects during matches. We're currently working on a fix for this to be deployed in early February, and apologize for any inconvenience. This next story comes from Super Mario 64. So a Twitch streamer with over 100,000 followers named Cheese did a 120-star speed run and beat this in exactly 1 hour, 38 minutes, and 25 seconds. Congratulations, Cheese. That is awesome. And this next story comes from the Transformers series. They are getting a bundle with the G.I. Joe Funko Pop figures on GameStop. So if you want to get that, I'll leave a link to it down below. This next story comes from The Walking Dead. It turns out they've been facing a lot of backlash for including a gay couple. Believe it or not, they actually did respond, and they had this to say. They said, hi, hello. If LGBT characters on television or anywhere make you uncomfortable or angry, please unfollow us. While we also encourage you to look within and be more accepting, Know that there is no place in our fandom for hateful discrimination or willful ignorance. Thank you. Now some sad news. This comes from Fire Emblem Three Houses. The voice actor of Nader and Costas has unfortunately passed away, and his good friend Chris said this on Twitter. He said, "I've been crying all night and I don't have the ability to write the perfect words for Brad Venable. Brad was everyone's friend. Brad was kind. Brad was light, was talented. Brad was humble. Brad was everything and more. I'm going to miss you and your hugs every day." This is the very first picture I took on this phone. We were taking a voiceover class together, and usual, Brad was amazing. This is the picture of a great man doing what he loved. I love you, brother. Also, very sad news. One of the voice actors for the witches from Resident Evil Village has unfortunately passed away as well. Her name was Jeanette Mao, and unfortunately, she passed away at the age of 39 from colon cancer. Capcom tweeted out this. They said, "We here at Capcom R&D1 are deeply saddened to hear about the passing of Jeanette Mao, the talented actress who helped bring several different characters, including our witches, to the world in Resident Evil Village. Our hearts go out to her family and loved ones." On a lighter note, this next story comes from God of War. Something not so negative. Very sad to hear about those passings. But on a lighter note, this comes from God of War. You know that guy from Mythbusters named Adam? He made a Leviathan axe, and it looks amazing. If you're a hardcore Lord of the Rings fan, you might want to skip ahead because this is probably negative. The Lord of the Rings Gollum has unfortunately been delayed to next year. Alright guys, now we're moving on to week 2, aka everything that happened last week. So this first story comes from Animal Crossing New Horizons. This game reached a big milestone. It sold over 30 million copies in less than a year. That is just insane. This next story comes from Astral Chain. Something weird happened with this, and it's made a lot of people question who really owns the rights to the game. User over on Reset Era named Hero of Legend said this. They said, "A bit random, but in Platinum's Astral Chain page, the copyright no longer includes them. And if you look at the pic that he links, it only says Nintendo." And then he goes on to say, "It used to just a couple months back. And if you look at the next picture that he links, it used to say Platinum Games. Maybe it means Nintendo brought their share of IP." This next story comes from 3 games, and that is Atelier Virus, Atelier Sophie, and Atelier Lady and Swell. So Koei Tecmo has now announced that these games are getting a bundle called the Atelier Mysterious Trilogy Deluxe Pack. And Koei Tecmo Europe tweeted out this. "The Atelier Mysterious Trilogy Deluxe Pack will be making its way to Switch, PS4, and Steam on April 22nd. Atelier Sophie DX will include a brand new episode and a costume. Stay tuned for more." This is kind of sad news for me because this was before I found out about Overwatch and I played the game and I really, really loved it. This comes from Battleborn, and unfortunately Gearbox has permanently pulled the plug on this game. You can no longer play online, you can no longer play single player. The game is gone for good. And this next story comes from Bayonetta 3. So in an interview with Video Games Chronicle, Hideki Kamiya said this when asked about any future updates on Bayonetta 3. "I understand it's driving the fans crazy. In light of that, my suggestion would be that maybe we should reset and forget about Bayonetta 3. Then when something finally does happen, it will be a nice surprise, won't it?" This next story comes from Bugsnax. So we could potentially see some DLC or maybe a full-on sequel to this game. So in an interview with Kotaku, the senior creative director and writer Kevin Zune said this about the future of the game. He said, "You should really take what Snorpy says with a big grain of salt, because like all of the characters in this story, he is only ever half right. We're still figuring out what exactly we want to do post-release, but we're definitely not done working on Bugsnax yet. I know I'd hate to leave that plot hanging forever." This next story comes from Burnout Paradise Remastered. So EA has now permanently lowered the price from $49.99 to $29.99. This next story comes from Castlevania. So we can now play this game in first person thanks to a Doom mod. It is pretty cool. A YouTuber with over 300,000 subscribers named Alpha Beta Gamer showed this off on his channel, and I'll leave a link to it down below. This next story comes from Celeste. So last week on Monday was the game's 3rd year anniversary, and the creator of the game, Maddie Thorson, said this. "To celebrate the 3rd anniversary of Celeste, we made a sequel to Celeste Classic for Pico 8. You can play Celeste Classic 2 now on web or Pico 8. This next story comes from Conker's Bad Fur Day. So this has been having a problem on the Xbox Series X and S where it just crashes unexpectedly. It said, "Hey Rare, the Great Mighty fight on the new Xbox is completely broken. This soft lock happens very frequently and it's a huge problem for anyone trying to play the game. I'm going to reply with videos of me and my friend getting this soft lock below." And then Rare responded and said, "Thanks for this, Arb, as well as the clips. We're forwarding it to the right people." This next story comes from the Crackdown series. So there have been these job listings that appeared, and they are Senior Game Designer Combat, and lead programmers. Now, what makes me think that this could potentially be a Crackdown title is it says AAA title and multiplayer shooter, and I don't know much about Crackdown, but I think it's a first-person shooter, right? And this next story comes from Dead Space 2. Last week on Monday was the game's 10th anniversary, and people have been going to Twitter just sharing their appreciation for this game. A YouTuber that I am personally a fan of named TheRadBrad said this. He said, Dead Space 2 released 10 years ago today. I remember waiting in line at midnight to buy it, then staying up all night making a video for it. That series was the first time I got a lot of recognition, and I'll never forget those reactions. Much love to all of you for supporting me. A Twitch streamer with over 500,000 followers named Ray Narvaez Jr. said this. They said, this game was a masterpiece. Shame they never made a sequel. Another Twitch streamer with over 80 followers named RWBY Love said, Dead Space 1 and 2 are some of the best horror games I've played. I definitely would recommend them to horror game fanatics that haven't tried them yet. And this next story comes from Death Stranding. So this game could potentially be getting a PS5 port. So Navtra on Reset Era said this. They said, if you're interested in playing Death Stranding but haven't yet, it might be worth it to wait a little bit. Another user named Dante Alighieri said, Death Stranding Extended Edition coming to PS4 and PS5. Just want to confirm if what I got told was true. And then Navtra responded with just a simple yup. And then another user named More Human Than Human said, do you know if the Death Stranding upgrade is coming as a patch, or will we have to buy a separate PS5 version? And Navtra responded with, even if there is an upgrade with it, I think it will be paid since there's new story content in this version. And this next story comes from Destiny 2. There's been this problem in the game called 3-peaking. Basically what this is whenever you peek around corners, it'll shift the camera from first person to third person. And a lot of people consider that kind of cheating, mainly because you can see all around yourself. Then the lead community manager named Cosmo tweeted out this and responded to it. He said, the team is aware of the feedback around 3-peaking and currently discussing possible options. No promises, as we are still investigating what changes are viable since it's a complicated issue that affects both emotes, swords, and any potential future third-person weapons. And this next story comes from Diablo 2. A remake could potentially be in the works. This comes from Bloomberg, and it says, Team 1 wanted to avoid repeating the mistakes of Warcraft 3 Reforged on its next project. Shortly after the post-mortem, however, Blizzard pulled that project from the team and put the division behind Diablo 4 in charge. A group of Vicarious Visions is also working on the remake, which was known as Diablo 2 Resurrected. Next story comes from Dying Light 2. A collector's edition leaked on Imgur, and not only that, but a release date has been leaked over on EB Games Australia, and the release date says May 25th, 2021. This next story comes from The Elder Scrolls 6. Tyler McVicker, who runs the Valve News Network channel, tweeted out this. He's a pretty credible leaker, and he said this. He said, I expect Fallout New Vegas 2 in the latter half of this decade. I expect The Elder Scrolls 6 in 2026 and 2027. I expect anything close to a Fallout 5 in the 2030s. Starfield is next, and even that needs another year or two. And this next story comes from the Hitman series. So it looks like IO Interactive could potentially be planning a Hitman 4. IO Interactive said this in an interview with Gamer. He said, we're continuously working on Hitman, so we are already looking to the future. We are definitely going to be doing some DLC, but we haven't defined what it is. I think for now we are not looking at new maps like the Bank and Island. And this next story comes from two games, and that is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 and Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne. Twitter user named Ezreal tweeted out this. They said The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD Remaster. According to Australian retailer GameWare, Shin Megami Tensei 3 HD will release in May 2021. Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 would release during the second quarter of 2021. Calendar year or fiscal year. This next story comes from Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. People have been speculating that we could potentially get a sequel, and what made them think this is that Ubisoft recently changed the Twitter handle of the official Rabbids account, and they changed it to Mario Rabbids. And when people started pointing it out, they quickly changed it back to the original Twitter handle. But if you look at the profile pic, it's still Rabid Mario. And now another Twitter account has the Twitter handle of Mario Rabbids, so only a matter of time until we get a potential announcement for Mario plus Rabbids 2. This next story comes from the NASCAR Heat series. So in an interview with Motorsport.com, the CEO of Motorsport Games, who is the publisher of the NASCAR Heat series, Dmitry Kozko, said this. In 2021, we plan to release a couple of more games and expand our platforms. One thing that we're actively working on is bringing NASCAR to the Nintendo Switch platform. That's going to be our first time on Nintendo Switch. We're excited about that, especially the fact that that tends to reach a younger demographic. So both us and NASCAR are excited about that move. We will launch another mobile product and we've been working for quite some time on the relaunch of the NASCAR Heat franchise, so we're definitely looking forward to that.